This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us. It is Wednesday, April 1st. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, President Donald Trump warning Americans of very difficult days ahead as the coronavirus deaths are expected to peak in the next 2 weeks, with the death toll possibly going to more than 100,000. With the White House task force again encouraging social distancing, we're going to hear from our medical reporter Lorie Johnson on why that is the best way to slow down the spread of the disease. And we have a special in-depth look at today how the coronavirus stimulus bill will affect your taxes and your pocketbook with those stimulus checks. And amid all the bad headlines on the coronavirus, we've got some good news from the worlds of entertainment and sports, as well as ministry. All of that ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to begin this half hour with a stark warning from the president and the top experts at the White House coronavirus task force, predicting hundreds of thousands will likely die from COVID-19. The only hope at beating those numbers for every American to stay at home. President Donald Trump saying America is in for a very tough 2 weeks, a time when he says the country will see a peak in COVID-19 deaths.
I want every American to be prepared for the hard days that lie ahead.
First slide.
The coronavirus task force presented grim numbers in Tuesday's news conference, providing the reasoning behind extending social distancing guidelines and giving the country its first look at the statistical models that anticipate the spread of the virus. The U.S. could see 100 to 200,000 deaths from the outbreak, and that's if a 30-day extension of social distancing is taken seriously. But there is hope that if all Americans observe the guidelines, those numbers can come down.
So what we're going to see, and that's we got to brace ourselves, in the next several days to a week or so, we're going to continue to see things go up. We cannot be discouraged by that because the mitigation is actually working and will work.
Dr. Deborah Birx said the university numbers are influenced by spikes we are already seeing in various hotspots like New York and New Jersey. But early action and extreme social distancing in states like Washington and California slowed the infection rate. Birx says if other states take similar measures, they can reduce the chance of a deadly surge.
There's no magic bullet. There's no magic vaccine or therapy. It's just behaviors.
And our CBN News medical reporter Lorie Johnson is joining us now with more. So Dr. Birx says that it's all about behavior. Are we seeing evidence that the stay-at-home orders and social distancing are working?
Yes. So this is very encouraging because what we're being asked to do is do it for the next month. We've done it for 2 weeks so far, and the early data shows that in these 2 weeks, the rate of increase of new cases has been cut in half. So that's very encouraging. But really, what's even more important than what we've done in the last 2 weeks is what we do for the next 4 weeks, because it looks like the peak is going to be in about 2 weeks, the peak of deaths. And they're predicting 100,000 to 200,000 deaths. That's if we all do our social distancing. But that actually can go down a little bit if we all do our part because those numbers are based on places like New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut that have very high rates. So we can actually bring that number down.
Dr. Birx also talked about the states and areas that haven't been hit hard yet. Can they also take the preventive action to slow down the spread of the disease, even if it's not a real problem for them yet?
That's actually one of the most important points brought out in yesterday's news conference, is that if you live in an area where you don't have a lot of outbreak, don't have a false sense of security, because once you experience a large outbreak, it's often too late by that time. So what we need to do is keep it low. And what's so interesting, Ephraim, is each and every one of us have the opportunity to be heroes. We see people on the first responders and the doctors and the nurses, but we each can do our part in saving lives by staying home and staying away from other people.
Yeah, good advice indeed. The White House is emphasizing the importance of these next 30 days, as you mentioned. Why are these 30 days so important?
Well, because they say that this is going to be the time where we see these cases spike about midway through the month, and then also on the downslope, it's going to be a lot less severe of a downslope. So this is the month where we can either have terrible, catastrophic consequences, or we can really buckle down and keep those death rates low.
We talked about the mask yesterday. It's becoming a hot topic even today. Are we likely to end up wearing masks to slow down the virus?
Well, we know that the healthcare providers need the masks that you buy, the N95s, but even the surgical masks. But the good news is, and President Trump mentioned this yesterday, is even cloth masks work great. So you can go to a website like Joann Fabrics and you can make your own cloth masks, or you can just take a bandana. I have this bandana I found in one of my drawers, and you can just put it on over your face like this, tie it in the back, and look like I'm robbing a bank. Make sure your bandana matches your clothing, because we have to keep our fashion rules, right?
I like that.
But even the CDC says this is okay, and it prevents other people from getting those big droplets that come out of your mouth and the big droplets from other people coming into yours. So if you're going outside, not a bad idea to wear this. Also, a great thing about a mask, even a fabric mask like this, is it keeps you from touching your face, because aside from the 6 feet social distancing, touching your face is one of the easiest ways to get the virus, and a lot of times we don't realize we're doing that. So instead, we would touch the cloth mask.
Yeah, my kids think I'm crazy, but I've been making them do that as we go out to take walks now. So I encourage that as well.
You're such a good dad, and it's nice when you're out and seeing other people wearing masks, because it makes you feel protected.
Absolutely, absolutely. The bottom line, it seems to be, is it really comes down to what every American individual does right now, correct?
Absolutely. And so a lot of people think, oh, this is the government. We're talking about the malaria pills and the vaccine. Yes, but really what's going to make the biggest difference is what each and every one of us is being asked to do, and we're being asked to be couch potatoes. Come on, we can do that.
Let's do it. Let's do it indeed. Lorie, thank you so much. I want to remind you at home to stay with us for the latest on the coronavirus as we provide updates on the CBN News channel and at cbnnews.com. Coming up, how will the massive new coronavirus economic stimulus law affect you? We're going to have part one of our conversation with tax expert Dan Pilla on the changes in the law and what they could mean for your pocketbook. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
The April 15th tax deadline is extended to July 15th due to the economic fallout from the coronavirus. That is just one change coming from the coronavirus relief package signed into law. Mark Martin spoke with tax expert Dan Pilla to help break down some of the most important parts for you as an American worker and a taxpayer.
What were the most significant temporary tax changes in the economic relief law?
Well, what happened even before the economic relief law, Mark, just to pull on the string that you laid out with your introduction there, is the changes to the filing deadlines and the payment deadlines. It's very important for people to understand that now the filing deadline is not April 15th, it's July 15th. So you have until July 15th to file your tax return, and Mark, the IRS granted an extension of time to pay. So you've got until July 15th to pay the taxes as well without penalties, all right? So the filing extension and the payment extension come without penalties or without interest as far as that goes. And so that's very important to understand. But there's secondary extensions that are available as well, Mark. If folks can't pay their taxes by July 15th or can't file their returns by July 15th, there's other strategies that are available to get you even more time if you need it.
And Dan, I understand there's a measure in the law that actually lets people withdraw up to $100,000 from their IRA and repay it within 3 years without tax consequences. Talk about that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That came with the CARES Act, Mark. That's the act that was signed into law here on Friday, the 27th. And that does allow withdrawals from an IRA or a 401k, penalty-free withdrawals up to $100,000. There's a whole series of reasons why you can withdraw the money if you've gotten sick as a result of coronavirus, either diagnosed with tested positive, or you actually come down with the disease, or a family member has, or if you've lost work as a result of it, if you've been laid off out of work completely, or your hours have been cut, you can take some money out. If you've got to use the money to pay medical bills in connection with the coronavirus, there's a number of factors. And so as long as it's an IRA or a 401k, which is essentially money that you've put into the plan to begin with, you can take that out without penalties, and then you've got that payback period that you mentioned. So that's an important factor, Mark, in this thing, because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have to draw on savings to get through this situation. Now, there's so many folks. I just talked to my brother yesterday. He's a jewelry salesman. He works out of Chicago, and of course his industry has been shut down completely. And he's talking about drawing on savings now to get through this over the next 4 or 5 months. And so that's going to be a big benefit for him and millions of people like him around the country.
And still ahead, more on the relief package, including the stimulus checks being sent to taxpayers, and if anything in this new law could change things for taxpayers for years to come. Stay with us.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
And we're back right now with more of our interview with tax expert Dan Pilla. He talks with our Mark Martin about whether there will be permanent changes to the tax code out of the coronavirus relief package, plus details about the relief checks that most taxpayers are going to be receiving.
Most Americans, Dan, are expected to get stimulus checks up to $1,200. Now, is that taxable income?
No, it's not taxable income, Mark. But here's the thing about the stimulus check. You're right. It's $1,200 a person. It's up to about. It seems to me it's about. I don't have the number right in front of me, Mark, but it's $75,000 of income for an individual, $150,000 of income for married filing separately or jointly, and then it phases out from there. It starts to phase out. So by the time you get to $99,000 of income for an individual, or about $190,000 or $195,000 for a married filing jointly couple, it phases out completely. You don't get it. But the key is this: you got to file a tax return, Mark, to get the money. It's going to be based either on your 2019 tax return or your 2018 tax return. All right. So either return. If you haven't filed 19 yet, okay, fine. As long as you filed 18, it's going to be based on the 2018 income. If you haven't filed either 2019 or 2018, I would say get on the stick and get that tax return filed, because if you don't have the return in there, then you're not going to get the stimulus, because that's what it's based on.
Let's go ahead and refresh our viewers. So normally you can get an extension by, paying your taxes if you can't pay by April 15th. You talked about an extension past July 15th. Can you clarify that again for us?
Yeah, exactly, Mark. There's two extensions that folks need to be aware of. If you can't file your tax return by July 15th, that's the extended deadline now. If you can't file by then, you can submit IRS Form 4868. That's called an application for an automatic extension of time to file your return. That gets you 6 more months to file the tax return, Mark. Now, there's a little confusion about this on the IRS's website. They say it's 3 months to October 15th, but when I read the regulation, it clearly says 6 months. But at the very least, Mark, if you file that form, you're going to get at least until October 15th to file the tax return without further penalties. If you can't pay the taxes by by July 15th, the extended deadline, then you've got the option to seek an extension of time to pay. And this is something the IRS never talks about, Mark. This is one of the best kept legal secrets there is in the IRS system, is the fact that you can get an extension of time to pay your taxes beyond the July 15th deadline. And that's done with IRS Form 1127. Form 1127 is called an application for extension of time to pay the tax. And if you submit that by the due date, now July 15th, you can get up to 6 additional months to pay the taxes. But Mark, the key there is this is not automatic. You actually have to make a showing in the form that payment of the tax would cause undue hardship. And the definition of hardship, Mark, is the inability to pay necessary living expenses. Well, I'm sure you'll agree with me, and I'm sure the viewers will agree with me, that's what's going on right now certainly is hardship by that definition. So I expect that if you've got at least a reasonable showing of economic consequences that you suffered as a result of this coronavirus, then you're going to get 6 additional months to pay your taxes without penalties, but interest does apply, Mark. So keep that in mind. Under the 1127, interest does apply. As to the automatic extension from April to July, interest does not apply.
All right, great information. Now, do you expect any permanent changes to the tax code because of the coronavirus outbreak, Dan?
Well, it's hard to say, Mark. I would say that I would certainly say that these IRA changes are permanent. That certainly appears to be the case. The stimulus is not permanent, no question about that. The automatic extension is not permanent, no question about that. The ability to pay disaster benefits to employees under Code Section 139. I don't like to confuse people with code sections, but Code Section 139, Mark, was put in after September 11th, and that allows employers to pay employees disaster benefits, all right? But additional income, additional payments to employees as a result of a disaster, fire, flood, hurricane, September 11th, that's when it was put into the law. And when the president invoked this national emergency situation back earlier in March, that Code Section 139 kicked into place. That's a permanent provision. So it allows employers to pay certain emergency benefits to employees, and the employees don't have to claim it as income, Mark. So that's a key thing. That's a good benefit in the law right now.
All right, tax expert Dan Pilla, thank you so much for all that information. We really appreciate it. Thanks for staying on top of it, Dan.
Hey, Mark, my pleasure, Mark. Thanks for having me. You stay safe now. Keep your family safe, huh?
Yeah, you as well. Blessings, sir.
God bless you, Mark.
Dan Pilla is the author of several books. His most recent is Dan Pilla's Small Business Tax Guide. We'll have a special offer for CBN News viewers. You can go to Dan's website at taxhelponline.com, where you can get his book at the discounted price of $24.99. It comes with a free consult with Dan and almost immediate shipping. Again, that's taxhelponline.com. Coming up, amid all the bad headlines from the coronavirus, we're going to bring you some of the good news and positive stories from the world of sports, entertainment, and ministry. We got that story for you coming up right after this. Stay with us.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the home front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
The entertainment industry is filled with creative people, and while the COVID-19 pandemic has shut down much of it, it's also sparked a new wave of creativity, and we're taking a look at 5 ways that's happening right now in this week's Studio 5 Countdown. At number 5.
You called me out upon the waters.
It's musical comfort in the age of COVID-19.
Dearest Father, closest friend.
The NBA's first couple, Steph and Aisha Curry, shelter in place, hosting an inspiring Instagram concert.
Make way through the water, walk me through the fire.
With a few of their famous friends in Christian music.
There's a quiet place.
Tori Kelly, Torrin Wells, Chandler Moore, and Hillsong United's Taya Smith.
And you walk upon the waters.
At number 4.
First base!
A bright spot, even as the coronavirus cancels and postpones Major League sports.
It's going to be a delayed start with so many sports. And at Fanatics, they make uniforms for the big leagues. But now they're adapting.
It's nice to be able to help and be able to have an impact in a somewhat quick way.
The factory turning those famous pinstripes into gowns and masks for healthcare workers in desperate need. Still making uniforms, but now for a different type of superstar.
At number 3.
I've never actually done this on the air. Can you lead us in prayer?
Bishop T.D. Jake shares this verse, posting, "It isn't every day that you're asked to pray for the nation on MSNBC.
Our Father and our God, we bow our heads to you in humility, understanding that we are not competent in and of ourselves to handle this kind of global calamity. We look to you, Lord, to be the source, the strength, the help, the light that we need. Strengthen our first responders, strengthen even our broadcast people, strengthen all of us whose lives have been devastated and disrupted, and give us the peace that passes all understanding. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
He also posted, "I pray that a silver lining could come from this pandemic. It's causing us to understand that we are a global family." At number 2.
Good evening, everybody, even though it is very clearly the afternoon, and welcome to SGN.
Hunker down at home. Actor John Krasinski launches a good news newscast.
Welcome to this highly produced show.
I like the sign.
Thank you very much. My daughters did it, by the way. I reached out to all of you this week, asking, nay, begging for some good news.
First in the good news stories, a neighborhood parade for Courtney Coco Johnson, with family and friends keeping a safe distance as she returns home from her last round of chemotherapy.
You being the hero, is there anything you want to say to everybody out there?
Yeah, there are a lot of people like me going through things that have low immune systems, or everyone that isn't going to be extremely affected by it. Staying home to protect people that will be is like really amazing.
At number 1.
I went into this knowing nothing, and then my heart completely opened up.
It's The Justice Project, Kim Kardashian's documentary, taking an emotional look at the need for criminal justice reform.
How long have you been in for?
I've been incarcerated since I was 16 years old. 23 years now.
This is a passion project for the reality star, who's studying to become a lawyer, but already fighting for equal justice.
We have to do so much more. There have to be way more Dons in the world that need help.
Speaking of help, Kardashian shapewear company is donating $1 million to families affected by COVID-19. Her documentary airs Sunday on Oxygen.
Everybody who's been locked up over 20 years, could you stand up?
People deserve a second chance.
And there is much more uplifting entertainment news on Studio 5 tonight, including a preview of the biopic on gospel music icons, the Clark Sisters, which is coming to Lifetime Television next week. That's on Studio 5 this evening at 9:30 Eastern. It's on the CBN News Channel. Before we go, it's time for your Wednesday word, and today's word is faith. It's important to remember this. It is always faith over fear. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but he has given to every man a measure of faith. And without faith, it's impossible to please him. Take just a moment and look back at all the good God has allowed in your life. Then look ahead knowing this: if he's done it before, he can do it again. Same God right now, same God back then. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our CBN News programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. And we would love to know what you think of the stories you've seen here today. Feel free to email us. That email address is right there on your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We would love to hear from you. We look forward to seeing you right here next time. I encourage you to make today a wonderful Wednesday, and then come on back and see us right here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless.